Hey, hi, how are you? Vadd here. If you are just joining us to see how to evolve pygmies, use the timestamps to jump to that part of the video. If you've been a part of the journey, thanks for joining me for episode 10. I finally found out what's been eating things in the bay. It looks like we have some apex squids down here. Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. You can't really see them unless you are in the water or you have a spyglass. This episode is the big juicer. We are going to have a little bit of a longer episode this time. There's just more things we really need to cover in order to successfully finish early game DinoOverhaul X. That's right, we're still in the Ragnarok map playing the DOX mod. The DinoOverhaul X mod is where we find these golden dodos. Hey, anytime you see a golden dodo, I really recommend pretty much stopping what you're doing and running these things down. 9 times out of 10, they are worth it, if not at 10 times out of 10. Anytime you're struggling to get your hands on saddles, if you comment, "I need a saddle," I'm going to say, have you killed enough golden dodos? That is my strong recommendation. Hey, this is a longer episode. We are trying to make sure that we don't leave too many stones unturned. DOX is a big mod. It really has a number of systems and features that are tough to cover all of them without getting too far into how things are in the late game or too far into the mid game. There's really just a lot to cover, and I'm not showing all of it. I'm really not. It's that big of a mod. This mod is also still actively being developed, so I'd really encourage you that if you're watching these playthrough at a later date, to take a second and test out what you're seeing working and try out for yourself if it works the way I'm showing it. And all that being said, what I'm saying now might not be accurate in the future. You know, the mod is subject to change and actively being developed as of the release of this video. What do I mean by that? Well, right now golden dodos are the best way to get saddles. In the future, that could change, and if that has changed, then don't spend your time chasing golden dodos. But for the current state of the DOX mod as of the release of this video, saddles are in golden dodos. And you're asking yourself, why am I chasing this dodo so hard to get this saddle? Well, in order to progress through the mod, we need to do a little bit of gear stacking. I've mentioned this a few times, and I'm hoping it's starting to move from the "this sounds familiar" to "I kind of get it" phase. We're gonna need a saddle with maybe 200 or more armor in order to survive in some of these bigger fights, and the blueprints in those saddles are often in these golden dodos. You can see here, mostly I'm only getting saddles and some of the DOX specific metals. By the end of this episode, we are going to be done with early game DOX. I showed you some Pteranodons. I've got a couple hours of footage of just trying to catch these guys. I hunted them down on my Apex Pteranodon. It was a nightmare. The golden Pteranodons seem to have a lot of the DOX specific meats and some health potions and not so many saddles. So if you're trying to make something and you need a DOX specific unique meat, Lazarus meat, Doom meat, Holy meat, Freya meat, Kellyan meat, Focal meat, Enduro meat, they're all in here. And we also got an Ascendant Apex Wyvern hardened scale. See that there? That is what a Wyvern saddle looks like. Right in the middle of your screen, 233 armor. There's lots of great drops that we only are getting because we're taking the time to run down these golden dodos and golden Pteranodons. So if you're out doing something and you see one and you have the tools, please go and get them. You need their drops to have a smooth progression. Okay, sure, you could kill none of these things and just try and fight your way through the prime dinos. You're just nerfing yourself in the foot a little bit. Moving forward, I'm not going to be re-explaining most anything covered in these first 10 episodes. That's a hint, these aren't the last 10 episodes. For example, here I'm taming a pygmy. You saw me tame one of these before. I've been explaining the mechanics of how to tame a pygmy and a little bit of why we want to tame a pygmy. Here you can see I pulled out the apex Pithecus and I positioned him so I could jump in and out of the trap so I don't need my crossbow. And again, we're trying to keep our eyes out for Vanguard Prime. Remember, every time that pygmy treat in the taming fails, there's a chance the dice are rolled that Vanguard King Kong is going to show up. He is a defender of all pygmies. Not only is Vanguard King Kong a defender of all pygmies, but if there's a Mega Kong in the area, he doesn't spawn in when a taming treat fails, but he will show up to defend the little guys, or gals. So moving forward, some things to remember. One, I'm not going to be repeating what's in the early game. If you see me have a pygmy, I'm working from the understanding that you watched some, all, or parts of the first 10 episodes and understand the concept of how I got the pygmy and why I have the pygmy. We're going to continue to talk about the why as we move forward. I mentioned it a couple of videos back, and again in this video, we really need to be making sure that we're stacking our gear effectively. What does that mean? Well, I have this pygmy here, and let's say I successfully tame this pygmy. It's going to give my mount a defensive bonus, which makes a big difference as we move into some of those tougher tier dinos. But it's not going to be enough by itself. We're also going to want maybe to use some health potions. Hey, this is our first dragon egg. It was right outside of base and it was super exciting. At this point, you know how to work your way up the progression tree to not just steal eggs, but to do the more appropriate thing and fight the nest defenders and get those eggs. I'm not going to keep showing you my character grabbing the eggs. I am doing the penguin pygmy here. I had a small nightmare with this guy. He just disrespects my DOX forged metal trap. He just scampers all over. And again, anytime you see a DOX forged or DOX crafted something, where was that built? It was in the DOX crafting table. How do we get DOX metals? We kill apex dinos. Hey, I'm struggling to get this penguin pygmy. What am I going to do differently? How are we going to adapt? Well, somehow, some way, he just calmed down and I was able to get a treat in its inventory and start the animation, and I just picked up my trap. I knew it was bad news from here on out. And again, this is our first sighting of Vanguard Kong Prime. Yeah, he's a bully. Did you see him? Let's wind back the tape for just a second. He didn't just kill me, my taming, the pygmy. He comes in from behind us, hits us for a little over half our health. This time with the pygmy penguin, I put it in the wood DOX trapper cage. Not this metal one here, but the wood trapper cage. But I can't get into its inventory until I pick up the trapper cage. So that's one of the trade-offs there, but I have it here. I've got it in my hand so close. I'm going to build a little shelter around it. Just some foundations and walls, cheap things that I could get from my surroundings. And I'm going to use these so that when I pick up the wooden trapper cage, the pygmy's not going to go too far. This is not the most efficient little area I've built, but it's an environment I feel like I can control. At least the penguin's not going to run too far. In all reality, some of these penguins, sometimes when I run up on a pygmy penguin, they're not too fast or they get stuck somewhere, and I'm able to just run them down and get in their inventory. This is a little bit elaborate. However, it's effective. I've got an environment I can control, and I'm going to get my hands on the penguin pygmy here. Again, we're talking a little bit more about gear stacking. Why do I want a pygmy penguin? Well, because if I tame this little fella and he rides on my shoulder, I'm going to get a boost to my mount. A pretty significant defensive boost as of this current state of the DOX mod. Like the title of this video should hint, pygmies aren't the end of gear stacking. Pygmies aren't the end of the road either. When you get a pygmy, we want to be evolving pygmies. These are things that should be sounding very familiar to you at this point. If you've been following along with the series progression, there's some things you haven't seen and might not understand yet, but these concepts should be sounding familiar to you. Pygmies can evolve, and we tame those apex dilos to get our hands on some evolution treats. That's right, Kong showed up again. That's the Vanguard Prime Apex King Kong. He's the one that has a shot at showing up when those taming treats failed, and I had a really tough time with these penguins. I've got my hands on another one, and I'm going to try and build a little tighter box around it this time, just to see if I can't save myself a little bit of resources. I could have built thatch. You know, the pygmies don't seem to try and just run through and destroy what I've built. You know, they're pretty content to flee. This was my big mistake. I built it too close, and the pygmy was in that little corner in the cage, and it just despawned. It's just completely gone. I picked up the cage, it wasn't there. I put it down, it wasn't there. There's no pygmy here. Hey, we're here with the 4th pygmy penguin, and I've got it in the cage again, the cage that it doesn't run out of, the wood trapper cage, which is a Dox cage. I built my little pen around it, and we're going to try one more time, and hopefully we get our hands on our first penguin pygmy. Hey, pygmies evolve. You say, what does that mean? Why does that matter? Well, if I have a pygmy Doedicurus, the pygmy is going to give my tame dino a 15% defensive boost. If I can evolve that pygmy to its 2nd level, to a tier 2 pygmy, to that apex pygmy Doed, now that buff, instead of being a 15% defense, it could be up to a 30% defensive bonus. That is a massive amount of defense, and we're really going to need the help from these pygmies as we go into our boss fights. But as you saw when the Vanguard Prime King Kong showed up, they can still die. So we're going to need to tame a small army of them, so that if we do have a fight go bad and we lose our pygmy, we lose our tame, we don't have to spend is a long majority of our time just trying to go and tame another pygmy. That's why I still consider this early game docs. We've tamed our first pygmy penguin, and Vanguard Prime doesn't seem to have spawned in yet. So let's see if we can't get our hands on it and get a look at what they look like. It's a lovely gold color, kind of a seashell yellow maybe. It's not bad. Looks like a kind of like an emperor boss level penguin. Whatever. Anyway, you swing it. It's the first one we've tamed this season, and that's super exciting. Another part of gear stacking is going to be the health potions, and you saw us get some from the golden Pteranodon. And here we've got a Pteranodon pygmy. So you can put the wood trapper cage on the flying pygmies, or you can both of them. Remember, when you put down a Dox cage for pygmies, it gives you that enrage buff, and it makes everything, even this parasaur now would be attacking me. I'm kind of running around looking out for Vanguard Prime. I have yet to see him show up, just felt his fury. With the flying pygmies, currently that's a Pteranodon and an Argent. I am just giving them a bola, and when they get on the ground, I'm throwing the treats in their inventory, and I'm hoping for the best. I got this sniper rifle from a drop. I don't remember what from, so I was just testing it out. It's a Dox weapon. It seems pretty okay. Maybe it's not a true Dox weapon in the sense that it was modded. Hey, this Dilo attacked me, but I didn't know what it was, and then I fell off this cliff, and it was very scary for a minute, but apparently I was falling up. I mean, I caught an updraft. I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, this wasn't that cinematic, climatic, scary, but in the moment, it was pretty terrifying. This is our first Pteranodon pygmy, and again, it's going to have a little different buffs from that Doed, from that pygmy penguin, and you say to yourself, how do I know what the buffs are? Well, my recommendation is you open up your Dox Book of Smarts and you go to the tab labeled Pygmies. And that's going to put you in a position to know what the buffs are from the Pygmies. And if you're still asking questions, go to the workshop page and try and get your hands on a link to the community Discord. That also, hey, our first Vanguard King Kong Pridey. I'm going to fight him this time. Let's review this. He gives an overthrow. I've been trying to catch my eyes on this fella, and then he hits me with the sky. Wow. Yep. This is the moment that I made a tragic mistake. There's no way I'm going to do 63,000 damage in the time he deletes me. Here I'm after an Argy, and the Argy's making a flyaway, but I'm just throwing bolas. I'm not going to waste time with this cage. I'm just going to get the treats in the inventory, and I got wrecked by this Omega rock drake that's invisible. Yeah, I die a lot taming these pygmies. I'm not fighting anything, it's just dangerous. They have defenders, they hang out in dangerous areas. I'm surrounded by microraptors here. I don't know why they didn't all aggro to me, but several of them did on the way over to this Argy's location. And Vanguard Prime shows up, King Kong shows up, Mega Kong shows up, that rock drake showed up. I had my my treats just about destroyed by some pagos. It's always an adventure trying to go out and tame pygmies, and it's a big part of the early game docs. It's a little bit subjective, you know, as far as what's early, mid, and late game, but I really consider this early game docs. That's our first successful RG team. No traps, just bullet it. I've got another RG here that I have treats in their inventory, but in between me and the RG is the Vanguard King Kong again. He showed up, but he spawned really far away. But my pygmy I just successfully tamed is in between me and Kong. And once again, he gives kind of the warning shot, and then he blows up the pygmy. It was very sad, and somehow I died here too. So that's right, we died again. I'm after an RG again, and that's all. That's literally all that happened. The flying monkey minion. That tells me that Mega Kong was in the area. I moved my my storage of implants over to this dock storage, which is obviously crafted in the Doc's crafting table. And Mega Kong minions killing me was actually the 50th official death. I haven't shown them all on screen. I really spend a pretty substantial amount of my time getting killed. You should also notice I moved the beds. Where do you say? Well, I just moved them out of the way. I'm always turning Rexes around or swiveling around, and this just felt like a good place for the bed upgrade to go once I moved into the beds with a shorter respawn timer. This is clearly overkill. Just a little bit of an update on the base. I mentioned before that I'm not going to show the complete builds of other bases. You don't need more than one base to progress in this mod. We also got a grinder down, and we're going to put the saddles we got from golden dodos in the grinder. We're going to grind them down, and this is going to help us get the resources we need to make the rock drake saddles. That's right, we've been stealing rock drake eggs for almost every single episode. We've gotten one or more. This is the loot from a number of golden dodo kills. I've got a whole bunch of these that I just killed and just tried to keep the screenshots up of. If you went back and froze it, you would see it's mostly saddles. This is the location for the second base that I'm going to be building. This is going to be base B. You can see here that if base A goes down, I'm a little more centralized in base B. See these triple waterfalls here on the Ragnarok map? If you go right in the middle, just below the top, a little to the right, you're going to be able to fly right in the entrance. I haven't gotten far into this build. I'm not going to show the build. I am showing the location to give you another example of somewhere you could be set up. Dinosaurs, beasts, monsters would have a tough time coming in over the waterfall. To get here, I've just put down the docks mega wall and a little platform on the outside. Remember, when we have access to those mega walls, they're not true protection. They are not going to stop something that's going to go through them. If something wants to get through them, they will. However, they are going to block line of sight, and lots of the challenges with the beast in Ark and in the docks mod, they're aggressive on line of sight. They cannot see through those walls, even though they're that nice frosted glass. This is a fairly large cave. I really like that it has a water supply in it. The roof isn't quite as tall. You really have plenty of room to do what you want in here. I might get an apex T-Rex stuck in a few places. I'm not sure I'd spawn them in my base. They're pretty huge if I was located in base A here, but this is my fallback base. This is base B. It's a little more centralized if things go terribly wrong at base A, I can always try and regroup at base B. But it's another option for you who are traveling into the docks mod, if you're on the Ragnarok map, to progress. Hey, these mega walls are these docks giant walls here. They're to help if a mega tier dinosaur doesn't despawn. They roam around the map at all times, but your base does. That's part of how Ark works. You walk away and things render when you get out of a certain distance. That way it's easier on the processing. I'm not exactly sure all the mechanics behind it. Bottom line, you get super far from your base, it despawns for a second. And when it spawns back in, sometimes there's a mega in your base, and that's very upsetting. One advantage to this base location, beyond the water in the cave, which my other cave doesn't have, is I have 2 entrances. So with Cave A, the original starter cave, Cave A, at Cave A, if there's something bad outside my door, my only option is to try and get past it. I only have 1 entrance, 1 exit. With this cave, I have 2. I mentioned before that an Apex Mammoth would have been a fantastic way to start the journey. I went with the Apex T-Rexes. I like those. You can see it's a passive tame. It's going to be some ingredients that might be a little tricky to get your hands on. You might not have a vegetable cake, you might not have superior kibble, but you can probably pick up a savo root, a rock carrot, a citronella, a long grass somewhere along the way. An Apex Mammoth is an awesome tame because it gets you off the ground. I can harvest berries, I can harvest wooden thatch, and it gets me off the ground. So if I'm up on my Apex Mammoth, if a Dillo shows up, I'm in a position of strength. And I was trying to just check out my stats on my tame, and this other dinosaur wanted to fight. I just let him fight. That's that. Hey, I also mentioned that an Apex Spino is another just respectable way to progress. I built a Spino trap, a fairly large one. I was building with some metal and some stone to see if they could break either of them. The key to this trap is this wall here has to be 5 walls high. If you make this 4 walls high, the Apex Spino is bigger than you think it is. It goes right through them like they aren't even there. Climbs right over anything. 4 walls high. That's right, it has to be 5 walls high. This is a pretty expensive trap. The sides here, I had some issues with the Spinos running off the edges. You don't necessarily need them. In all reality, it's just 3 behemoth gates and a giant ramp. You can make this a lot cheaper. You don't have to make it cheaper. Build it your way. But again, this is in a spot where I know Spinos tend to spawn. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for a breeding pair of Spinos because I want to minimize setbacks. I'm going to have failures, and if I can breed 2 Spinos and only come out and play with the egg, that's good. I haven't shown you any of the Tranq Gear. I really feel like it's mostly self-explanatory. However, if you've played Ark, I'm assuming that you're familiar with the concept of a knockout tame and a passive tame. And if you're downloading mods to play Ark, I'm still making that assumption. So if you see like a pleb, I fall in my own trap. If you see some gear that's labeled as tranquilizer gear, I'm assuming you kind of know how it works. That being said, just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to show you one full knockout. Dox has these awesome advanced poison grenades I highly recommend. See here, it does about 3,000 Toper, and then it starts to go down, and then the Spino just loves to eat it up, and we get up around almost 6,000 Toper, and then it's just still eating it, and now we're over 8,000 Toper from one Dox advanced poison grenade. That's right, we used one tool, and our value was 8,000 Toper. That is a fantastic tool to help you get some of these tames to build some of these poison grenades. And if you're gonna throw them off the edge and knock yourself out, I recommend not doing that. It's just not optimal. I thought I fell in the trap here. I didn't, which is good. And I thought I was getting Toper. I wasn't, which is good. Looks like I got one in, and then I fell in. The good news is I somehow glitched off, I think, the tail. I don't know, but I got whacked. I just got swatted, but the Spino's still in my trap, so can't break stone or metal as of the current state of Dox. I'm back trying to trank him out again, and I'm going to use the poison grenades on her, and you can see she has 27,000 Toper. If that grenade at most did 8,000, I only really need 4 grenades. I'm probably going to throw 30, because if you can't kill it, you should overkill it, and if you can overkill it, you should overkill it. Hey, you saw those little medic symbols flying around in the bottom right corner of the screen? There's a little logo. That's telling you I took a sip of one of the DOX health potions. So that's actually the smallest health potion. And we talked a little bit about gear stacking. And what do I mean by gear stacking? I mean, if you show up to a fight, you should bring a friend that gives you a defensive bonus or an offensive bonus. That's your pygmy. And you maybe want to bring a health potion. What do these potions do? Well, the potion I use there is the smallest potion. It lasts for 50 seconds. And every second for 50 seconds, it regenerates 250 health and food. So if I drink one potion and then I drink a second potion, I'm not going to double the value of healing. I'm not going to double the time of healing. I am only going to essentially just waste a potion. Let's say I drink one potion and it has 40 seconds remaining of its 50 seconds. And I drink a second potion. The only thing I've done is reset my timer to 50 seconds. I should have waited 49 seconds before drinking another potion. You can see these grenades are a lot of fun to use. They have this neat animation, they have some great sounds, and they trank things out like none other. This is really the way to go. In addition to the poison grenades, there's also some DOX Advanced Tranquilizer Darts. These are also very potent. I'm using just a regular, not very buffed long neck rifle. This is the one you can just make. It's not Mastercraft, Ascendant, Journeyman. It's just regular long neck rifle. And we got another Spino in the trap. This one has about 24,992 Toper we need to work our way through. And you're going to see here with the DOX Advance Sniper Tranq Darts that when I pop this guy, this gal, she's going to get about 1,200 Toper a hit. So the Tranq grenade capped out 8,000 pretty easy. And these are going to be about 8 bullets to or 8 darts to get the same amount of Tranq as I got from one grenade. But, you know, if I throw a grenade and you're not in a trap and you just run away, you know, it's doing the Toper damage in an area, and this is doing it directly into the beast. In addition, when you're taming in DOX, you could also get your hands on the stimulants. What these are going to do is they're going to make the food bar go very low. So there's nothing more frustrating than knocking something unconscious and it never gets hungry enough to eat your food. Here you're going to see I'm going to pop it with the metabolism boost art, and there you go. The food's empty. We now have a hungry and unconscious Spino. This is going to be a smooth tame. There's also the floof gun. I'm not a fan. It feels like it slows me down when I move, and it's got some kind of weird animation. I'm just not about it, but it's pretty potent. This is an Ascendant version. I don't really like it because I would rather be progressing towards getting my pygmies, getting my base, getting those poison grenades. If I pick up a floof gun and it gets me closer to where I'm trying to be, that's awesome. I'm not going to shake my fist at it, but for the most part, I feel like it's a distraction from where I'm trying to get to. Are they fun? Yes. Are they kind of a fun little fruity color? Yes. Do they have some nice third person, first person angles I can look at? Yes. Good range, decent Toper? Yes. Not a lot of damage? I mean, no complaints here other than I feel like it's a distraction from progression. I don't need this gun to get where I want to get to, and this isn't something that is necessarily repeatable. I have the tools to make more poison grenades. Hey, if you're looking for plant species, this is what they look like. These are all over the Ragnarok map. Plant species X seeds. Now we've picked them. So keep your eyes open when you see them, pick them up. Some quality of life things just outside the base. I just built a way to get up into my base without a flyer, and I just blocked off the top of this valley. So if anything walked down here, it wouldn't walk right down my base. I felt like most of the scary stuff was coming from up the hill, and it looks like I'm right. This is that lava prime golem elemental that just wrecked us, and I just put 2 docks walls. I like putting the docks walls in places that aren't just the entrance to my base. I've got 2 Spinos here. I've got a breeding pair. I'm not going to take them out from my base. I'm going to hatch their egg, and I'm going to use their egg when I go out and fight. That way, if things go wrong, I'm not setting myself massively back. It's the same thing I did with the T-Rexes. I mentioned this at the beginning of the series. I mentioned this right at episode 1, that the Docs mod has some recommended settings for difficulty on the Steam Workshop page that I highly advise you go ahead and check out. I'm not using those settings myself. I'm playing the mod my own way. What does that mean? Well, you're going to see here, real quick, see how I put these doors? I could have sealed it off with just 1 door, but they have that swivel animation, so by putting 2 doors, it just lets me get in and out a lot quicker than waiting for the whole door to make a giant turnaround. It's a little thing, right? I spent the extra resources to make this kind of silly. I enjoy kind of building utility things, and here I built this way to get in and out of my base. It's kind of obnoxious and kind of long, but it's fun. I think that's something that sometimes gets forgotten in all the effort to grind and get ahead and to progress, that we really need to be having fun while we're doing this as well, because we're going to have some big setbacks. We're going to have that Vanguard Kong show up and wreck our day. I also made 2 different ways to get into my base from the ground, so I don't always have to tame a flyer. I should have done this sooner. I just didn't want to. I don't know why. I didn't. Hey, I'm playing on my own settings. I'm playing my own way. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to make a huge effort to show you. I'm going to fight X, Y, and Z next in the mid-game here as we move into some of the bosses. Hey, I'm going to fight this thing. Here's my saddle armor. Here's the pygmy I'm using. Here's the potions I'm bringing. Here's the dinosaur, the beast, the creature that I'm taking with me into the fight. And you should look at your own tames, and that might give you a little perspective of, okay, so, Vadd here showed up with a creature with, 20,000 health and 2,000 melee, and I have the exact same creature, but he only has, 12,000 health and 500 melee. Can I win that fight the same way or not? So, I want you to be... this is the Spino baby from the other ones, and obviously we're going to name this. Yes, Alicia. Alicia N. You just can't trust a necromancer. Hey, so I want to caution you and to encourage you to try things out on your own. Like I said, the Docs mod's changing. I have been hatching rock drakes in the background. There's nothing more interesting than paint drying, grass growing, or watching eggs grow to adults. I just wanted to show off some of the fun colors we got in the saddles that we made using our grinder, because you need gems to make rock drake saddles. These are just basic saddles. However, if we didn't use the rock elemental prime we tamed, or the apex spino, or the apex T-Rex, we could have used these rock drakes to get our first prime compy kill. This would have been an absolutely fine tame to have taken into the fight. If I just put down that grinder earlier, I probably could have gotten this egg hatched and ready to go before my Apex Rexes were ready to go. With the Apex Rex, I took on a Nest Defender. I just wanted to showcase that my Apex Spino can also take on a Nest Defender. Hey, so you can use my playthrough for ideas and examples for how to get out of the early game. You can pretty much copy and paste all of this, but as you see me move into some of the boss fights, you're going to want to be thinking to yourself, do I have similar gear or not? If the answer is yes, then you can pretty much copy and paste whatever I do moving forward. But if not, then be careful. Test it yourself. Just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. A lot of my settings are set up in a way where if I get an imprinting bonus, that's a huge buff for me, and a lot of Docs is hatching eggs. Something to remember in the DinoOverhaul X mod is just because something's doing damage to you doesn't mean it's also not knocking you unconscious at the exact same time. And I forgot that right here. Yep, not only did I almost die, but knocked my Spino right into Spinny Land. Came out with the Rock Drake, finished off the fight. Spino woke up, and I got the egg. that's the story short. But the lesson learned is that the Spino can take on the nest defenders. I think the Rex sits up a little bit higher, and I got a little bit of a bonus from some bleed damage, which really made it a much smoother fight. Might have just been the angle I was at, but the Spino handled the issue no problem. One thing you might not have noticed are that when we see something flying in the sky, another plant species over there, little plant species XC, when we see a Manticore or a dragon or a Wyvern, there might be an egg around. Eggs are always in these nests. I'm really looking for these nests. Even if I see a... Look here for a second. This is Griffin. You can see I've got a pretty basic saddle. I've got some health potions of a basic kind with me. I'm pretty beefy with my health. And I've got my Pygmy Doed on me, right? So I'm getting the defensive bonus. This is a little bit of gear stacking. That defensive bonus is going to help. My Rex having been bred and 100% imprinted is going to help. Bringing the health potion is going to help as we move into this prime compy fight. I showed it once before with the Apex Pteranodon. We're moving into the fight here with the Apex T-Rex. Real quick to back up for just a second. When we see those beasts flying around or we see them landing on the ground, we're really looking for a nest. If there's not a nest, there's not likely an egg. It's not a guarantee. I found some floating eggs, but ooh, an Apex Argent Prime. But overall, if there's a nest and there's a nest defender, there tends to be an egg. Just because a Manticore is guarding the nest doesn't mean it's not a Wyvern egg, and just because a Wyvern's guarding the nest doesn't mean it's not a Manticore egg. Hey, this is that Apex compy we fought before, but straight off the start with the Rex, and you can see I do about 2,000 damage a hit, and the prime compy only has about 10,000 health, maybe 14,000. I only have to hit it 5, 6, 7 times to end the fight. This is exactly what I'm talking about here. You might have a Pygmy Doed, and you might have your health potions, and you might have bred Rexes, but your server settings might be a little bit different where your Rex isn't hitting as hard. You can see here we got some more. See those Apex Wyvern hardened scales? Those are Wyvern saddles. I know it doesn't look like a saddle, and we got some dock specific armor. So when we're talking about gear stacking moving forward, that Dox Ascendant Riot boots, that's a part of the Dox Riot set. So there's a hide, a cloth, a riot, a chitin. There's different armor sets and docks that give different bonuses. Again, I'm just showing you. Here's Alicia N, my Apex Spinosaurus, and she's going to take on an Apex compy. And here I was just hitting this compy way too hard. I'm hitting it for 6,000 almost, and we've got another compy killed. So this time I didn't get anything, but it dropped a bag, so I went back to look for the bag, and this is super exciting. That's right. See that piece of kibble, the little purple and yellow, the prime kibble? That is why we are fighting prime dinos. This is part of why this is the end of early game docs. We're at the point where we can challenge a prime compy basically anytime we want with anyone on our crew. Here with Komori, that's the name for our rock drakes. You know, you can't trust the necromancer. We are going to try once again to fight the Apex compy, and I went invisible just to see if the compy had some issue targeting me. It didn't target me until I attacked, and its minions for a second were like, who are we fighting? So that was kind of fun just to test. This is why we're kind of at the end of early game docs. I've mentioned prime kibble before. You can see we got that floof gun, the organic poison rifle, and we got some more dock specific armor, and that Manticore prime enhancement part is also a Manticore saddle. Hey, remember that prime Argent that we saw? Well, you can see here the prime Argent provides amount up to 7.5% more damage and defense. And if we can get it to stage 2, we're going to get a 1.75 on all values. So it's going to give us more damage and even more defense. Why does it say up to? This is the part where you should be asking yourself, do Pygmy levels matter? The short answer is no. The long answer is yes. If you have a Pygmy you just tamed, and as of the current state of docs, if you have tamed a Pygmy and it is under level 520, you're not getting the full 7.5% for the RG Pygmy for your increased defense and increased offense. I haven't shown you the mechanic of opening the docs book. You pull it out of your inventory, you put it in your hand, you click right, and then I go over to the, not the getting started tab, but the Pygmy Evolve requirements, and here's where I'm getting the information on the Pygmies, and then I click Pygmy Argent, and what is it going to tell me when I click Pygmy Argent? Anyone know? Does anyone click this tab? That's right, it's going to tell me how to evolve the Pygmy. You can see here, any treat preferred for second stage. Those Pygmy Taming treats were the Dodo eggs, the Pygmy upgrade treats are the Dilo eggs. Those treats have other ingredients you need to make. I am not showing you how to make stimulants. You saw me pick up some black pearls once before. I'm not showing you how to make kibble. All those recipes are pretty straightforward, and you should be able to make those yourself. Here I've got a whole bunch I've put together, and I'm going to have a similar animation to when we tame the Pygmy. Now this time, if it fails, we don't get the Vanguard Kong showing up on our base, as far as I know. But every time you see this animation turn on and turn off, I'm burning a treat. And I go through quite a lot of them here. This is a pretty expensive process. We're talking about Pygmy levels. Do Pygmy levels matter? Yes or no? Short answer, no. I'm sorry, short answer, yes. Long answer, no. When we upgrade this Pygmy, we're going to get no less than the highest advantage that the highest tier of the tier 1 Pygmy would offer. I'm going to make that a little simpler. If the tier 1 Pygmy gives me a bonus of 10, and at a tier 2 Pygmy, it can give me up to a bonus of double 10, which is 20. If I upgrade to the tier 2 Pygmy, but its level changes, which is what happens, the level changes, it re-rolls again, and that level is now below 520, so I'm not getting the maximum buff. That really applies more to the tier 1 Pygmies. So to backtrack one more time, I've got a tier 1 Pygmy, and it's getting its maximum buff of 10. I upgrade it and I roll the dice, and the Pygmy goes to tier 2, which should be a maximum of double that 10 buff, so I should be at 20. But instead, the Pygmy, when it re-rolls the levels, it gets a level of 4 instead of 520. The lowest bonus you can get from a tier 2 Pygmy is always the highest bonus at the least of the tier 1 Pygmy. One more time, the lowest bonus of a tier 2 Pygmy is always the highest possible bonus of a tier 1 Pygmy. So if you got a tier 1 Pygmy that's not an awesome level, but you level it to the tier 2 Pygmy, it's going to have the best possible bonus, if not better than the best possible bonus. One more time, if you have a tier 1 Pygmy that's not an awesome level, but you upgrade it to the tier 2 Pygmy, that Apex Pygmy, it's going to have no less than the absolute best bonus of a tier 1 Pygmy. More likely than not, it's going to have more bonuses. So you can see here, this Pygmy evolution fails a lot. Finally, we have success, and we get this fun little glowing object with these particles, and it looks like it kind of popped open on us. We're going to pick it up, and if we are successful, we're going to put it back down, and this is going to be our Argentavis Pygmy Apex. This is a tier 2 Pygmy. See the crown? That's right, it's a king, it's a queen, it's royalty. When we get a successful Pygmy tier 2 into that Apex Pygmy, now it has a crown. Did you see its level change to 460, and before it was more than double 460? It re-rolled the levels. So before it was getting the maximum buff of 7.5%, but now I'm in a slightly lower bracket than over 520, so I'm still going to get no less than 7.5%, but I might not get the full 1.75 times 7.5. Bottom line, it's stronger and better than it was before. However, this is not its final form. If I pull out my Docs Book of Smarts, you'll see that the Apex Argentavis has a third upgrade, and we're going to put some of the dock specific meat in stacks of 10 into the Apex Pygmy. Where do we get that meat? We got that meat from the golden Pteranodon. That's right, when you see a golden Pteranodon or a golden Dodo, please run them down, kill them. Again, at the end of this video, we are done with early game docks. This is an absolute beast of a tame. If I went out into the wild and tamed an Apex RG, it wouldn't be as good as this Apex Argentavis Prime. The only way to get this monster is to tame a Pygmy, evolve the Pygmy to the Apex Pygmy, and evolve it a third time to get the Apex Argentavis Prime. This is an absolute monster of a dino, and we could kill that Compy Prime no problem with this Apex Argentavis Prime. This is that next level Docs tame. We talked about this a little bit in episode 1 and mentioned it several times after that. You have vanilla dinos, you have apex dinos, you have prime dinos. We're able to tame a prime rock golem, and we could have been using him to fight the nest defenders and progress and fight the Compy. Now we have a Spino, we have a T-Rex, we've got a rock drake, and now here's the path where if you tamed none of those things, you didn't build cannons, you didn't build Tranq things, you just went straight to the Pygmies. We could have got our hands on this Apex Argentavis Prime, and we could have used the Apex Argentavis Prime to go out and fight the nest defenders. We could have been using this tame to go out and fight that Compy and get that prime kibble. Prime kibble is only dropped in prime dinos or above, and we're going to need prime kibble to progress. So this is falling under one of the things that you've kind of seen before, but now you should really be understanding it. If you've been with me through the last 10 episodes, thank you. I know that this is a long one. However, there's nothing in here that I feel like could be excluded, and drawing this out into 3 20-minute videos would have been obnoxious as all get out. The Argentavis Prime, this Apex Argentavis Prime tame, can summon minions. It's got the smithy like the regular RG. It's super beefy. It does damage. It should still heal. And I can go tame another another RG Pygmy and have it as my shoulder pet. These Apex Rexes were what got us off the ground and into some of the Docs beasts. These Apex Spinos would have been a fantastic way to go as well. The Rock Drakes were options. However, we really want to be trying to get our hands on prime dinos. From now on out, Apex dinos are going to be considered weak and not worthy, not worth it, not going to get us from point A to point B. They can fight, but they're not the monsters we need them to be to fight the bosses we want to fight. Here I'm just showing you the Pygmies getting summoned. It was a lot of fun. I just pushed the C button and it worked. Yeah, it's that simple. I had that Pteranodon Pygmy. It can also evolve. Its evolution is going to be very similar to the RG's evolution. I'm going to pull out my docs book. I'm going to go to the Pygmy tab, and I'm going to select the Pteranodon Pygmy. You can see the Pteranodon Pygmy gives me 15% less damage, but I do 35% more damage when it rides on my shoulder. You can also see it's unique. It doesn't have an Apex Tier 2 variant that gives me more damage and less armor buffed a second time. Instead, you can see here that I'm going to put some Docs candies in its inventory, wait until the green ore appears, and then some Docs raw prime meats. We got those Docs raw prime meats from the golden Pteranodon. It's not the only place you can get them, but I got a good stack in there, and that's going to help me upgrade the Pteranodon Pygmy. Just like the Argentavis Pygmy was an option for progression, if I ran across a Pteranodon Pygmy, this would have been another fantastic option to progress through the DinoOverhaul X mod. Sure, you saw the Rexes, the Drakes, the Spinos, the Argentavis Apex Prime. This is going to be not just a Pteranodon Pygmy, it's not going to be an Apex Pteranodon Pygmy. I've got the group fluorescents that tell me it's going to be Tier 2. this doesn't go anywhere. This is the final animation telling me I was successful. It ate the treat, it liked it. You can see on screen it says place 10 of any DOX raw prime meats. There's an additional prompt that I had from the book. I'm going to take the same prime meats I used last time, that stack of 20. I'm going to put it in the inventory, and just like a moment ago, what happens? Well, our Pteranodon Pygmy transitions into something more. That's right, this little glowy ball of fun. This tells us good things are in store. We're going to pick this up. It's going to go in inventory, and when we place it down, this summoning artifact is going to move this Pteranodon into a Tapiara. That's right. That Pygmy Pteranodon, through a little work and a lot of patience, we were able to get into a Tapiara Prime. Again, this is that prime level dinosaur. From now on, that's where we're at. If we're not using prime dinosaurs, we're in trouble. I got a good blueprint for a Tapiara saddle. There's also, let's not get off track there. I'm gonna take the blueprint and put it in the crafting table. And you can see here the armor on it is in the 230s, but when I build the saddle, it's going to be a little bit higher. You're asking, why? Well, there's a crafting bonus in ARK. In DOX, there's a couple of pieces of armor you could pick up that if you're wearing when you craft these will also give a bigger bonus. It's going to read crafting speed. Currently, I'm understanding that can be interpreted as crafting bonus. It's not literally that it crafts faster per se. It might, it could to a degree, but it's also actually going to improve the blueprint. So I can continue to make these saddles, and if I can get a better crafting bonus from a better drop, then I would get even better armor from these saddles. So just like I mentioned a moment ago, we really need to be using prime tier tames, and you can see the process to get our first tame, that Pygmy was an accidental mistake. It was a happy, what's a Sam Squanch, whatever. Just like to get that Pteranodon, that vanilla dino was fairly straightforward. Then I needed a little more to get that apex dino. Hey, you can see in the enhanced cloth that the gauntlets give 300% crafting speed. If I can get my hands on these gauntlets, that saddle would be improved further beyond. You can see again the hide gloves also have a crafting speed bonus. That's going to make that blueprint, when I click make, it's going to give that saddle a little better armor. Hey, we tamed the Pteranodon. It was a passive tame. It was pretty easy. We tamed an Apex Pteranodon. We needed some Tranq Gear. It wasn't too hard. We tamed an Apex Rex. I needed more challenging Tranq Gear. We finally got a Pygmy through our Dodo in our garden, and then we evolved that Pygmy through our Dillo farm in our garden and our farming, and then through hunting some DOX creatures, we were able to then upgrade that Pteranodon into this Tapiara. I built this little bridge across DOX Bay, against Viking Bay in the DOX mod, and it's just for fun. You know, it's not really gonna stop anything that wants to get across, but now I can pretty much run straight across the bay if I want to. And I built this little wall here because then if something mean's chasing me, maybe it won't fit through the wall. You know, it's just for fun. Remember, just because we're playing a very challenging mod doesn't mean we shouldn't stop and enjoy what we're doing. You know, there's gonna be big setbacks, and if you look at my implant box, I've experienced a few, but moving forward, I'm gonna try and make an effort to show you a little less of the grind and a little more of the what's what. This Tapiara Prime would have been another tool we could have used earlier on. We could have just made a straight shot to get this, and then we could have been fighting the nest defenders with this. It's also just like a regular Tapiara. It moves forward, it moves backwards, it moves up, it moves down. I think it has a platform saddle as well, but I can also, you know, put it up in the air flapping around, dismount and chill out for a second, and I might just be able to pull a weapon. Yeah, that's right. I can pull a weapon. What does that mean? Well, if we're fighting something that can't shoot back or pretty long out, I can pull out my sniper rifle and kind of gun them down from the air and not risk my tame. It's not a guarantee. Lots of things can hit from a distance. However, this is another level of options in a fight that we didn't have before. Here's that Doedicurus. Notice it doesn't have a crown. This Pygmy Doed is clearly a level 1 Pygmy. And I have the highest tier buff on this Pygmy and the next couple I'm going to show you. Spoiler there. And just like the other Pygmies, how do we evolve a Pygmy Doed? I'm going to go into the Docs Book of Smarts. You can see here the Pygmy Doed gives a 15% defense increase based on tame level, and evolve the stage 2 for double the effects. So as long as I tame a Pygmy that's over level 520, I'm going to get a full 15% bonus. When I upgrade to level 2, if it's under level 520, let's say it's over level 520 or at 520, I'm going to get a bonus of 30% extra defense. If it's at level 2, at the low level 1.5, level 0.5, level 1, the lowest level we could get, its defensive bonus would still be no less than 15%. Remember, those Apex Pygmies, those tier 2 Pygmies, their bonus is never less than the highest bonus of the tier 1 Pygmies. Again, we got the summoning artifact, and right now you should know what to do. If you get your hands on a summoning artifact, you place it down. You don't trap it, you don't eat it, and you can see we have a crown. This is a part of gear stacking. This is a huge part of progression. This is a part of boss fights, because these Pygmies are giving me different options. That Argentavis Apex Pygmy, that tier 2 Pygmy, was going to give us attack damage and defense. Well, this Doed is giving me straight defense. You can see it's under level 520, so I'm not going to get a full double 15 to 30% defense. I might be only getting 25% defense, but I'm getting a 25% damage reduction. That's huge. You could see on the Pteranodon Pygmy that I was getting an attack damage bonus. When you're struggling to progress, you want to look at your combinations to see, are you setting yourself up to succeed? When I took my Rex to fight the Compy, I saw that I was hitting for 2,000 and he only had 12,000 health. I only needed to chop him 6 times. I only had to survive for 6 bites. Here, these are all tier 2 Pygmies. They were all tier 1 Pygmies at the highest level. I'm just showing you that here it's over level 520. So this Pygmy is going to give me a 30% defensive bonus. This Pygmy here is under level 520, but it's still a tier 2 Pygmy, so I'm getting no less than the 15%, probably up in the 20s. Here I'm over level 520 when we rerolled the levels on the upgrade. And again, we got the reroll on the upgrade levels, and we're still over 520. So 3 out of these 4 Pygmies are going to give me the full 30% defensive bonus when I go into the fight. Could I upgrade them again? Yes. I'm not interested in that right now. Hey, in the Docs mod, the Docs crafting table is where we craft Docs stuff. The high output refining forge is where we melt Docs metals. And these are a part of our early game progression. It's time to officially announce the end of early game Docs. From now on, we are in what I consider mid-game Docs, and we are going to put down the Docs Shrine. We're going to spend some more time in the Shrine moving forward. We'll probably need to build more than one. It's a very dangerous tool, but it's the tool that is officially announcing the end of early game DinoOverhaul X and the beginning of the mid-game DinoOverhaul X. I really hope you've enjoyed this longer episode, and I look forward to having you join me in the future episodes in this series as we move into mid-game Docs. Good luck with your own Docs journeys. Until next time, peace. If you learned something or enjoyed this video, share it with a friend. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. If you have joined and enjoyed before, welcome back. If you would like to see more quality content, please consider joining me in supporting the channel through Patreon and utilizing the affiliated links. Thanks.